Okay, so we downloaded Excel on the last video. The reason we did that was because if you use the online version of Excel, you've only got a very stripped down version of what you can do. So if I wanted to make a chart, for example, which is what we're doing today, there's only a limited number of options available. The reason they do that is because all the applications like Excel and Word are quite complicated, they take a lot of computing power, so they can't rerun on the internet as well. They can't be run from the cloud as well, I should say. So although they're useful, they don't have all the functionality of the desktop version. So in your search bar here, type in Excel, and you should end up with the desktop version, and this is what we'll be using today. My cat has just had kittens, and we're going to be working with some data that I've collected about their weights or their masses as we go on. But to start with, I need to teach you a few things about dates. So at the top of the column here, I'm going to write date. And when you enter a date into Excel, the best way to do it is to do the date, the number of the day, so the 20th, and then a slash, forward slash, and the number of the month, forward slash, and then the year as a 4-digit code like that. Once you've got it in like that, you can then right click on it, go to format cells, and then you can ask it to display in any different way you'd like. If you prefer to see it like that, then it will convert it to that with the month written as a word. Now if I weighed my kittens every day, then I want to not have to write out the 21st of April, the 22nd. I want the computer to do it automatically. So I can say in this cell, I want to take the value of the cell above. So I'm going to press up on my keyboard, which will automatically select the cell above, which is B3. This is called a relative reference because it's basically saying, in this case, from B4, B3 is the cell above it. So if I take that and then add 1, it will add 1 to the cell above. Now because in this cell I've got this relative reference, if I drag this down using this dot here, it will create a new relative reference saying, can you take for B5, take B4 and add 1. If I do that again in this cell, it will say for B6 it wants to take B5 and add 1, and then drag down. Oh no, made a mistake there. There we go. Now if you didn't want to do it every day, but let's say you wanted to do it every 2 days, then after your first date you could have gone, can you add 2 days? And then it would have done the 22nd. You didn't have to update that. Sorry, my mouse isn't working very well. Every 2 days like that. Okay, but I do want to do it every 1 day, so I'm going to go back, change that to every 1 day, and I have to update these like so. Okay, another word on dates is these are not going to change now because I set this first date here as a static date. It's set to the 20th of April. But let's say for some reason you wanted every time you opened your spreadsheet to reference today's date. Now that could be useful, and I'll show you why in a minute. So what you could use is this function called today. So you write in equals today, open brackets, close brackets, press enter, and it will tell you what today's date is. So it's the 20th of April 2020. Now that is very useful, and I'll show you why in just a second. So the kittens were actually born on the 9th of April, not today, so that was 9th of April there. Now if I wanted to have something at the top here that told me how old the kittens were, so every time I open up the spreadsheet, I wanted to automatically tell me how many days old the kittens are. So write days old here. Now to do that, I'd need to take whatever today's date is and subtract the 9th of April. So how am I going to write that in? Well, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So I could just click this cell here, but it gives me this. Now why does it give me this? This is quite complicated because it's obviously the kitten's age is not the 11th of January 1900. There's quite a complicated reason for this. I'll try and explain why now. Every day throughout history has its own number. For example, today's date. How will the computer know what today's date is? Because it doesn't store letters in the same way we would store letters in our own heads. It converts every date into a number, and I'll show you what I mean by that. If I actually right click on here on the date, go to Format Cells. If I press General, press OK. That gives me this number, 43,930. That looks completely meaningless. Where's that number come from? Let me do the same here. Turn them all to General. Now, as you can see, they've all gone up by 1. Now, basically, when people made the first computers, they decided that the first day that they would consider as day 1 is the 1st of January 1900. So if I type in 1 here, let me just do that again. If I type in the number 1 here, and then I say, right, can you turn that into a date? It turns that into the 1st of January 1900. Let's make that a bit more clear. Okay, so if I say, well, from that date, so that in terms of computing, they consider that like the dawn of creation. So if I say, what was day 100, we can turn that into so the 100th day after the 1st of January 1900 was the 9th of April 1900. Okay, so every day has its own number. So today's date, for example, if I say today, 20th of April 2020, if I turn that into a number, that means there has been 43,941 days since the 1st of January 1900. Okay, so that's what the computer does. It stores every day as a number, and as you go through the days, it just adds a number. Okay, so if let me turn these back to days. So if I want to know what today's if I want to know how many days there have been since kittens were born to today's date, then I need to take this number today, which is going to be a number around 43,000 or something, and we're going to take away this date here, the 9th of April, the day they were born. It's going to give me this, which doesn't make a huge amount of sense, because what it's done is it's taken the number it calculated and turned it into a date. But if I go to Format Cells and change that just back to a number, 11. So the kittens must today be 11 days old. Okay, right, I'm going to insert a column here. So left click on row 2 and then right click on it and press Insert. And I'm going to have kitten 1. I haven't named the kittens yet, but I'm going to call the first one Roberto. And I'm going to put in the weights that he was on each day. So he's 127 grams on the first day, 141. Okay, so please go ahead and enter those. Okay, so looking at those numbers, you may see that there's some worrying information in there. Some days the kitten didn't go up in weight, and some days it went down in weight. And the real reason for that is that my cat, the mother of the kittens, was ill on some of those days. We couldn't actually feed the kittens, and so their weight went down. And I'll show you how we could have seen this on a graph, why it's important to weigh kittens and make a measure of them. So I want to make this into a chart, so I'm going to select the all of this column, so the date and the kitten's name, and then all of the days to be included. And I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to go to I was going to try and recommend a chart. You can do that if you want, but I know I want this to be a line graph. Now you could have a bar graph if you wanted. Probably not the best choice for something over time, unless you're comparing it to something else. So I'm actually going to go with a line graph. There. Now you can have a look through, but This is the one that makes the most sense. You could have it with the data points on if you wanted, like that one there. I'm going to go with line graphs with no data points. Okay, so you can see, let me just make this a bit smaller. You can see weight gradually increasing, leveling off there, up, down, and so on. It doesn't look great at the moment, but we can change that shortly. Now, what I do know is that a kitten is supposed to increase in weight by about 10 grams a day. But anywhere between 8 and 12 is okay. So I'm going to try and show that on the graph to kind of give me an indication of whether the kitten is achieving the right weight. So I'm going to create a new column over here called minimum gain. Now the minimum gain a healthy cat's supposed to make, or kitten, is 8 grams. So on the first day, if there was 128, I want to add 8 grams to that every day to show me what the absolute minimum the kitten should be at is. So I'm going to say equals that, add 8 grams. Okay, so that's added 8. Now if I drag that down, it will add 8 across every day. Now, not the maximum gain, but I'm going to put maximum because it could gain a lot more than this, but the suggested healthy maximum gain is 12 grams a day. So I'm going to start with 127 again, and I'm going to say I want it to equal, for that initial cell, so E4, plus 12 grams. I'm going to drag that down. Okay, so now I want to put this information onto my graph. So I'm going to click it. I'm going to go to select. So I'm going to go up to Chart Tools, Design, Select Data. Now you can see here that the data is only selecting from B3 to C14. So we want to change. I want to change that. So I'm going to drag from B3 all the way down here to the bottom of it, which is now E14. Press enter, press OK. Okay, so what you can see it's created on this graph now is a minimum weight gain and a maximum weight gain. And what you want is to make sure that your kitten is always in between those to make sure she's gaining enough weight. In fact, my kitten went outside that weight gain there. So it's only theoretical and it's only an average as well, so it's not to worry about too much. Oops. Right, so that's the first part of the graph I wanted to show. So okay, so if I want to make changes to this graph, let's change the lines colour first. So if I click one of the lines, right click on it, and change the colours however I wish. So red, I could have red here as well if I wanted to show that they're like the minimum and maximum. We need to stay within those. Next, I don't like the way these dates are displaying, so I'm going to right click on them and go to Format Axis. There's lots of things you can change here. Some of them you won't want to touch at all here, but they'll be more relevant for other things. Now, for dates, I'm going to go down to here, number, and it knows it's a date, but it's actually giving us the option here to change how it's displayed. So I'm going to change it to those ones there. Now, as you can see now, this has now split this out into the 13th and the 15th. It hasn't put a 14th in the middle. So let's see if we can put some marks in there to show where they would be. Now, the reason it's done that is because it doesn't have enough space to show all the numbers. So it's had to miss some out, but we might be able to change that. So let's go to text options. Now, at the moment, the problem is that the text is going horizontally, and really if it was going up and down the page, that would be better. So if we go over here to text box, change the text direction to 90 degrees like that, they're now all displaying, which might be better if you prefer that. We could try going back to axis options and changing it to that. It's not great because of the way, if I make the chart bigger, then it has room to display them. Okay, next, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Next, let's make sure we've got some labels on the axes. So this axis has to have a title here, so you can just double click on it and write in it if you want. So, but if it isn't there, then you need to go to design and add chart elements, and you can add a title there if it is or isn't. You can make them appear or disappear if you don't want them. So I do want them. So horizontal, right? So on the horizontal axis, I just want date. Oops. Right, so I'm going to make this a bit deeper so that I can see them. There you go, date. And on this axis, I want this to say mass in grams. Okay, and then you can add in, if I click on it again and go to design, I can add in a chart title if I want, such as Roberto's weight, or mass I should say, really mass over time. Okay, so I've saved this as Roberto only mass because I've only got Roberto's mass on here. I'm going to add on the other kitten's weight, but I want to delete some of this. I don't want to delete this, I don't want to lose any of this work, so I'm going to start by going to File, Save As. I'm going to change it to all kittens mass. Save. So now I have two copies, I do have two versions. Roberto's only one has also been saved, but I have this one I'm now going to edit. So I'm going to click on chart, delete it. I'm going to delete both of these two columns by selecting them and hitting delete on my keyboard, and I'm going to put in the weights of the other two kittens, which I'd like you to do as well. So I've got Rodrigo and Ramon, the two other kittens. I'm going to add in their weights. All the weights put in. Now I'm going to put this into a table. I'm going to select all of the information, insert table, and that just makes it more organised. Now I'll make this a little bit narrower. So if I'm going to select from C to E, narrow them up a bit, so we've got more space for our chart. Now I'm going to select the entire chart. Oops, my mouse is a bit broken. Select the entire chart and then insert line graph. We'll put dots on this one. And there you go, as you can see, we've got three different coloured lines and they've all got their own legend here, or label, but it's called a legend in this case. And you can see in comparison they're all going up and all falling at roughly the same time, because this point here was when the mother got ill and they couldn't feed as well, but then it's been going up since then basically. So we're going to make all the changes we did before. So for example here, this axis here is a complete mess, so I'm going to click on it, right click, format axis. Now there's several ways we can change it. I'm going to go to down here to number and change it to dates written like this, the smallest option, and I might go to text options. I'll change to horizontal like that. It's also given us I don't like the fact that the labels here are not on the tick marks. So I'm going to go back to the axis options and I want them here on ticks like that, and then they're all nicely lined up. It's much more to my liking. And then give it a title, so kittens, and double click. Oh no, that's right. Kittens mass in grams over time. And there are no labels on these axes, so if I click the graph again, go to design, add chart element, and an axis title, neither of them have been selected, so I'll select that, and this is going to be date. Yep. And then likewise, if I go to add chart element title, this is going to be mass in grams at the side there, and that's fine. Now, there's obviously lots of other things you can play around with, like the chart styles at the side here, whichever you prefer. They're all essentially fine, but that's the basic idea. That's how you set out a basic chart of some data.